to In the Footsteps of Politics, the show which aims to take the broadest view of politics and people's lives. We will talk to some of the most interesting people about how they got to where they are, their successes and their failures. We'll talk to politicians, activists, writers, artists, and anyone with something of value to say. If they want to talk about their personal politics, they're absolutely welcome to, but in general it's a broader conversation, more interest in the intersection of politics and policy and where politics actually matters for the people. I'm Peter Newman, your podcast host. I've been a teacher, a journalist and a political candidate for over 20 years, and now I'm here to welcome you to go in the footsteps of politics. Right. Hello and welcome to another episode of In the Footsteps of Politics. I am absolutely delighted to be joined once again by Michael McEwen, a freelance journalist from the Central Belt who we spoke to only a couple of episodes ago, but he's back with an exciting development. So Michael, over to you. What have you been up to since we last spoke?
Yeah, thanks for having me back on, Peter. I was brilliant to be on your podcast a few weeks ago. It was on a few weeks ago, actually, to talk about my footsteps into politics. But yeah, so I have been working on a new campaign for about a few years now. But we became a charity as of November last year, and it's called Stay Upright Scotland, and it's basically what it says. And the thing basically about people staying upright and enjoying themselves, but people with learning disabilities, because people find it more difficult with learning disabilities to either go to the pub or go out to see the pals or go to the cinema or whatever and stay up late, because that's a very important thing as well, because usually so the whole point of the campaign is for people to have like the choice and control of what they want to do in their lives. But unfortunately, people with learning disabilities have support workers. So the support workers might have to ask them to leave early and a night out, and that's fine. But long as you actually ask the person that you're supporting, "Oh, am I okay to take you away home early, Michael?" Or whatever. But usually it has the opposite effect. So that's why we kind of need this campaign.
Oh, that's fantastic. So it's much more about giving the people their own control, basically, and allowing them to make decisions for themselves, rather than it being dictated by people's hours or something.
Yeah. So we want to say to like local councils, whether it's Inverness or Glasgow or whatever, support people, but give them the control, the choice and control about when they want to go back home or if they want to stay late as well. And what we found as well, Peter, that people with learning disabilities are getting put to bed early. So that early, what I mean is, 10 past 8 at night. And I suppose, like, if people want to go to bed at 10 past 8 at night, that's totally fine. But again, it's back to that giving people choice and control about what they want to do with their lives.
Yeah, I mean that's about dignity, isn't it? In treating people as people. There's not really. So, what's the response been to the announcement that you've now become a charity and everything?
Well, it's been so I figure it's been a UK. It's been a UK charity for more than about 10 years now. We've became a charity since November, kind of like last year, and it's just trying to get the word out in terms of doing interviews with like your good selves and kind of like newspapers and all that to try and spread the word and to try and tell people about how important the campaign is. I mean, I always say that it would be brilliant not to have this campaign, because if we didn't have this campaign, well, everything would be the same. If you know what I mean by that term, but
I do, yeah.
sadly, it's kind of not. And I suppose, like, a quick history tour, and in terms of why I kind of like got involved in the campaign, Peter, like years ago. There's an organisation in the Central Belt called Dates and Mates, and it's for people with learning disabilities. So it's a kind of like dating agency to meet a boyfriend or girlfriend, or just to meet pals. So it's a friendship agency for people with learning disabilities. And I went along one night because one of my pals is the director of Dates and Mates, and they knew that I like to go to nightclubs and all that kind of stuff. So they held, I don't know if anybody's familiar with a nightclub in Glasgow. It used to be there, called the Archies. And,
yes, Archies as well.
And basically so when you walk in, it was full of people with learning disabilities. So that could be all the different types of, disabilities. And it was brilliant to see. And people was dancing, people was drinking, people was, everyday kind of things. And I wasn't used to seeing a lot of people with learning disabilities in the nightclub, but it was still brilliant to see. So Dates and Mates kind of like branded that night as Club Late, and it was Scotland's first fully inclusive club night for people with learning disabilities, and anyone. Anyone can come in and dance and drink and all that kind of stuff. So I went along with my partner because the usual joke is I can't join Dates and Mates because I've got a partner, and like she wouldn't like it. But so I went in, and wow, amazed. And then at 9:15 at night, it started to become more and more empty, and I thought, okay, this must be the norm, because I haven't been to one of these kind of events before. So I went back home, and then they held another night a few months later, and it happened again. And I was like, I need to do something here, because it's not very fair that people with learning disabilities or any physical disabilities are getting taken home early against their will. So I started to look into the Stay Late campaign, and then I was thinking about setting a campaign up in Scotland, because we haven't really got a campaign in Scotland. And obviously it took me a few years to build up. And we started off with getting a national committee. So like you've got me, as the chairperson of Stay Late. You've got people with that lived experience, as we always talk about on the committee, but we also have the organisations actually supports people with a learning disability as well. So I think what I'm trying to say is we have like 50% with a disability, but also we have 50% with a 50% with an organisation background. He came on as well. And then we formed a kind of like committee, but we wanted to, get one bank account and all that kind of stuff. And the only way that we could do that is to organize to form a charity.
Yeah.
And yeah, so here we are today talking about state rating. Like it took a few years for that to be set up, and we've got people on the charity from like Glasgow Inverness. We've got somebody from them on the national committee. We've got somebody from Aberdeen, Edinburgh. So I mean, if people's watching this, and you know, if they're from outside the areas that want to take part in state rate, by all means, kind of like contact me, because I was looking for people to get involved and carry the can basically of like the ethos and the message of state rate, because I feel as though it's very important.
It sounds incredibly important. And I think it's really good that you've already got the kind of geographical spread as well. Because I was going to ask you, is it at the moment, is it kind of central belt centered? But it doesn't sound like it is at all, which I think is fantastic. I suppose I was writing down something when you were talking there. I was just wondering whether is it possible, or have you already had some interest from politicians? Could we get like some local authority, maybe councillors and stuff behind it? Because I wonder where it kind of comes in terms of actually. I suspect there's going to be a kind of local authority aspect to it, right? Because a lot of the carers will be employed by local authorities. And I mean, it does come back to our last podcast episode where we were talking about treating people as people, you know, who happen to have a disability rather than, you know, they are disabled. And I think it's exactly this idea of we need to just listen to what people are saying. And perhaps that means changing carers' shifts so they start later, which means they can carry on later, and that sort of, you know, there might well be, I don't know what you think, but I wonder if there might actually be fairly simple solutions here that are just being not examined yet.
Yeah, so I mean, every avenue is open, so that if you or any of our girls is getting the idea, you know, like come forward. But one of the things was to get a launch and speak to like local politicians and local councils as well. But, I mean, before we became a charity, Zoom is quite handy because I don't have to go. I don't have to go anywhere, and like so the meeting came to me on Zoom, and I spoke to some of the care providers a bit. Some of the care providers said, yeah, we actually support state rate Scotland, and I'm like, well, that's brilliant. But at the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, are you really saying that, or are you just saying that to kind of like pacify me? So I think the job now is for our charity to go back out to speak to different health and social care partnerships as well. And to talk to MSPs, whether that's well, the majority is in the Scottish Parliament now, but obviously in Westminster now, and trying to spread the word about what we're trying to do and what we're trying to achieve to get people with learning disabilities. Another thing as well, even though it's called state rate, it doesn't mean to say you've got to go out for a night out to state rate. You can actually stay rate in your house, you know, as well. So there's a lot of kind of like practical work to be done and kind of like ground level as well. But I feel so important that people with that lived experience, we need to hear from them.
Definitely, their voices need to be heard, don't they?
Yeah.
So, I mean, what's your? Can I also just say I know firsthand how difficult it is to get through that charity process. So you've done amazingly well just to get that done. Because I'm not surprised it took you a good chunk of time. Even opening a bank account for voluntary organisations now is a nightmare. And certainly a bunch of organisations I'm involved with are really struggling to get bank accounts because the banks are making it very, very difficult for voluntary organisations. So, I mean, that must have taken a lot of navigating just to get there. I suppose that how are you getting support from the English or the I don't know whether was it England, the original Stay Up Late? Have they been involved? Have they been supportive?
Yeah, so what I was going to say just quickly was we were working with an organisation. I don't know if I should mention the name, but Outside the Box. So like they help kind of charities become charities, if you know what I mean. So
I do, yeah.
like, and I think they're Scotland wide.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of like Stay Up Late UK, as I call them now, because it's more easier. Because before Stay Up Late Scotland was on the scene, I just called them Stay Up Late. But it's because it's too kind of Stay Up Late Scotland and Stay Up Late UK. I've kind of every time I refer to them, I always say Stay Up Late UK. So it's a wee bit different because obviously when you get down to the rates of the charity numbers and all that, you've actually, even though that we mimic their ethos and stuff like that, but they come under England and Wales. Scotland doesn't have their own Scotland don't have their own kind of charitable numbers and all that, so that we had to, and that's why we had to go to Outside the Box to support us in that process. Because I mean, I thought it would be easier just to kind of like work with Stay Up Late UK, but I didn't realise that at the time it was slightly different. I think it's to do with like government laws and all that kind of stuff, you know. I mean, we are like copying, well, not copying, that's the wrong word to use, mimicking the same ethos of the campaign, but we've got to go out on one, basically. You know, and I mean, Stay Up Late UK was brilliant, but I'm happy with that because they were, at the time, they were a charity, but they were actually working around the whole of the UK as well. So yeah, but they were delighted that we became an official charity. You know, I mean, we were working with them on and off, but because like we're a charity now, we can hopefully hold more events and all that.
Mm-hmm. So what's the dream event? What's the money is no object, all the time in the world? What would you like to? What would be the big event you'd like to do?
I think for me, I mean, if you come back and ask me about 10 months' time, Pete, I might give you a different answer. But like for me, the now, it's just spreading the word about Stay Up Late. For example, we held a few Stay Up Late events over Zoom during lockdown, and they went down well. And people was actually still on Zoom at 1:30 in the morning in the house. But
Nice.
if you compare that to a nightclub in Inverness or Glasgow or whatever, the place would be empty at 1:30 in the morning. And I think it was because people was in their own house as well. And the support knew that, I don't know, but I suppose like the support knew that, oh, Michael or Peter's going to this kind of party on Zoom.
Yeah.
They're in their own house. But I mean, I always compare that to, that was a positive thing during lockdown, but a positive and a negative as well, because as I say, if that was in a nightclub, it would be empty by that time. But if it was on Zoom at 1:30 in the morning, people will still be, you know, partying away, and that's good to see. But yeah, good and bad as well, I suppose.
Yeah, it's kind of showing you why it's so necessary, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's that double-edged sword. It's like, oh, here's what can be done, but actually, here's here's why it still exists as an issue.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I wonder whether is it worth. I mean, I know it's everything, right? It's cinemas and it's restaurants and it's all of that. But I wonder if there is any scope to get the organisations. And I mean, you mentioned the Arches. My head had automatically gone to Clatty Pats and Viper and all of that stuff. And I was just wondering whether there's any sort of scope to get the venues on board and sort of start displaying the logo, or at least even just being aware that it's a thing. I wonder if that's the next step as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, we did have a few meetings with like DF concerts as well before, like we became a charity as well. Also, we work with I should have said this as well. So when Scarlet was born, basically down in England, all these years ago, a project started to come out of it. And the project was called Gig Buddies. And basically that kind of says what it is as well. About, like, for example, like if I was going to a gig and I didn't have a lot of pals to go out with, and like I could go to a gig. So it's a kind of matchmaking service only for going to gigs. So, like, for instance, if you're into the same music as I was into, they would match me and you up to go to the music festivals. But also out of that, you become friends, and you start to go to different events as well. So gig buddies is a kind of thing. It kind of started outside Skiplet, and they work with like venues as well. And I think they won an award. Was it last year? I think it was at the Edinburgh Festival. About the most accessible project in Scotland as well. So there's all these kind of bits of wonderful work kind of like going on outside as well. But the skill really kind of like a bit of a gap in terms of like I mean, it's all right for me and you to talk about the campaign, but I always say that if you want to go out for a night out, it always starts when you leave the front door, in terms of like getting an accessible taxi, getting an accessible bus to the venue. When you get to the venue, it's an accessible toilet. You've got to actually like think on your feet all the time. You just can't say, right, I'll go there tonight. But when you actually look at that venue, they haven't got like what I was saying to you, kind of like if there's like 10 stairs to get in, and when you get in the toilets up the stairs, and you're thinking, well, that's a no because I'm no in hell I'm going to get in there,
Yeah, absolutely. And we're still not, as a country, very good at that, I would say. I think if you start looking through the eyes of somebody who's got any form of disability, actually, a remarkably large number of places are nothing like as accessible as they should be, or even think they are. There's a lot of you'll see it in hotels and things. People say, oh, it's a disabled friendly room, but actually you couldn't get a hoist under the bed. You couldn't do any, it just because it's flat and there's a lift, they think they've kind of ticked the box. But there's often a world more challenges for people, aren't there? And so
yeah, no, I was just going to say as well that you would know better than me, being up in Inverness as well, but like Glasgow's got brilliant music venues, but most of them are up the stairs.
Yeah.
And all that. And then, it just annoys me how people really can't get into events because the lift's broken, or they haven't got a lift, or stuff like that. And Glasgow's got an amazing venue for music, but as I say, people just can't get in, and stuff like that. So Stateway as a campaign for like everything in terms of like better access, better support, better listen, just to make it more easier for people to go out, because yourself, it puts people off going out if that they're not going to have easy access to different things.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you and I mean, we've spoken about this before, but I was telling you about my dad and the wheelchair and stuff. Like we never went to football when I was a kid at all, because it was just completely before he was in the wheelchair, even when he could still walk, it just wasn't accessible to him at all. A football ground was just wildly, and I'm told it's better now, and that's great, but that was just something that was just completely unavailable. And actually, it was only later on, as he got older and things got slightly better, that you could do things like cinema trips and stuff like that. Because in the old days, it just was completely ruled out. So the barriers that people face with the physical, and like you say, learning difficulties, whatever, they're huge, and they do stretch across all of those venues. And you're right, Glasgow's a nationwide music venue. People will come from all over to these festivals and events and venues, and it's close to a huge section of people. It's just very sad, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you would think it would you would think it's not rocket science, and accessible to everyone. I mean, as I keep saying, I've said this to you a few times, Peter, but I keep saying to everyone that it would be brilliant not to have this campaign, because if we haven't got this campaign, then everything's the same. But sadly, we've got to have this campaign to fight for people's rights, and also as well, like when you talk to different venues or gifted councils or whatever, when you talk about accessibility, they basically say, "Oh yeah, we never thought about that," and I'm thinking, well, why not? How is a person in a wheelchair meant to go inside if there's, like, as I say, 5 steps or something like that? So I think you can't really beat that kind of life experience, because don't get me wrong, Peter. People with life experience don't know all. Just because I've got a disability doesn't mean to say I don't know everything about disabilities. But we've got a hell of a better understanding than kind of people like working at it kind of like 9 to 5, basically,
Absolutely. And like you say, lived experience is really useful, because those testimonials can make it personal. It doesn't mean it has to cover everyone's lived experience, because like you say, everyone's different. So it's it's very valuable as an idea. So that leads us on. How can people get involved? What's the best place for them to get in touch with you, and what can they do?
Yeah, so as I said at the beginning, we've got a national committee, but also we're looking at local committees as well. So, for instance, there's people up in Inverness who want to kind of get involved at a local level. They can still get involved at a local level. You're going to have to be on the national committee to kind of get involved. So we've got local groups with we've got local groups at the moment in Edinburgh and Aberdeen and Glasgow. And before COVID, we used to actually go to different cities to have meetings. But because we've got in the habit of having Zoom meetings now, we're having meetings on Zoom as well. But so if you want more information about State Late, you just email us through the email address. It's stateuplatescotland@gmail.com. So that, stateuplatescotland@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Facebook and X as well. Or sometimes I still call it Twitter. Depends what side of the bed I get that day. And just, if you just look for State Late Scotland, and you can, I suppose that the social media is quite good because it keeps people up to date in terms of if we've got an event, so whatever coming up. And also if you email us, as I say, statelatescotland@gmail.com. We've got a mailing list as well, so that if people want to be added on the mailing list, you can just mention that in the email and stuff like that. It's totally free to join. I know people love hearing that nowadays, but yes, because why pay for, I was going to say a service, but it's not really a service. It's more of a campaigning kind of thing as well. And kind of like get involved in State Late.
Fantastic. I think we absolutely can. You'll find the links to that in the show notes. You'll also find Michael's details and his X account. So you'll be able to get in touch with him if you've missed any of that. The other thing, of course, you can do is hire Michael to do some freelance journalism for you, which is always welcome.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Peter. Yeah.
No worries. I mean, you can also email footstepsofpolitics@gmail.com. So you can talk to us and we'll pass any details on. I want to be respectful of your time, Michael. I've a little behind the scenes baseball for people listening. I've messed Michael around with dates because we've both got ridiculous diaries. But I finally managed to sort it out and get him on this morning. So thank you so much for joining us, Michael. That was really, really interesting.
Yeah, no, it's always a pleasure to speak to you, Peter, but also it's a good opportunity for me to tell people about this State Late campaign.
Yeah, it's clearly so valuable. So I think it's a real testament to the amount of work. You must be absolutely exhausted. You don't lack for you are quite busy.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I feel though that it would be brilliant not to fight all the time for different things in terms of like State Late, in terms of like employment issues as well, and similar to what I was speaking to you about before. But I think like disabled people has always got a bit of fight in them to say, well, why not?
Yeah. I mean, there's no shortage of good causes, are there? That's part of the problem. But it's just you just have to keep fighting the good fight. There's not really another option.
Yep.
Anyway, Michael McKen, thank you ever so much for going in the footsteps of politics. We will see you when we're back next time. And remember, Stay Up Late Scotland at stayuplatescotland.org, I believe. I will speak to you later. Take care.
That's all we have time for this week. Thank you for listening to In the Footsteps of Politics. You can email the show, footstepsofpolitics@gmail.com, or you can find us on Facebook by searching for Footsteps of Politics. If you've enjoyed the programme, please rate, review and subscribe wherever you get your pods, and you can find us on YouTube as well. In the Footsteps of Politics was written, hosted and produced by me, Peter Newman, and the music was Joyful Footsteps by Ukrainian producer Diamond Tunes, who you can find the links to in the show notes. Have a lovely week. We'll see you next time when we go in the footsteps of politics. And remember, politics is decided by those who show up.